In today's episode, we're going to take a look at this. The Ender 3V... No. This is a Voxelab Aquila. And man, it looks a lot like an Ender 3V2. In fact, it's a clone. But it's $100 less on Amazon than an Ender 3V2. So let's take a look at it on today's Filament Friday. Filament Friday is brought to you every week by the generous donations of these Patreon supporters. So the Creality Ender 3V2 and the Voxelab Aquila. But who is Voxelab? Well, Voxelab is a division of FlashForge. If you're familiar with them, they're the FlashForge Dreamer, FlashForge Adventure printers. I've shown those on the channel. They're really nice printers, but they're a lot more expensive than these two. So Voxelab appears to be their opportunity to compete at the low end with the leader, which is basically Creality. So they've copied the V2. Almost identical. The Aquila comes as a kit the same way as the V2. In fact, it looks like an identical kit. It looks like they even copied most of the manual. So assembling this takes about 45 minutes to an hour, the same as it does for a V2. So if you look at this guy, things like the hot end, very similar to this. In fact, they even copied some of the flaws. The PTFE tube goes all the way to the nozzle. So if you take the nozzle off, you can push the PTFE tube all the way through. But when I did take the nozzle off, they had a gap in their test print, so it left a little ring between the nozzle and the PTFE tube. If I would have printed with that, I probably would have had some blockage. So I just replaced the nozzle. They did give me an extra one in here, but it looks like it's the same nozzle as the Creality machine. The only thing that's really different is the LCD. Now the LCD on the Creality machine, the V2, is an LCD panel that's actually easier to read from the side. So if you look straight on, it's hard to read, but if you tilt your head to one side, it's much easier to read. So what they did on this is take that same display, turned it 90 degrees, which forces you to look at it at an angle. So this display is actually easier to read than the one on here. Now there are third-party software that have made that much better. Like I showed in previous videos, Gyre's third-party firmware for this makes it better. Well, someone has forked that. So there's a fork, and I'll put a link to this. There's a fork of the Gyre's firmware now for the Aquila. This, I installed a BL Touch. This one has two screw holes, threaded holes, to install a BL Touch, and the community already has a bracket for a BL Touch on there. The electronics boards are almost identical. The connectors are in the same place, everything. There's even a connector for the BL Touch. They do have a fuse, a automotive type fuse at the power wires, so you can easily replace that. That's something this guy doesn't have. So there's a few features it does have. I've also noticed that Voxelab now offers spare parts for this, which is one of the features I loved about Creality, or I do love about Creality. I can get replacement parts real easy. So they're offering replacement parts for this. Now because they're identical, they probably can swap, but they have actual Voxelab parts that you can get. So they're going at it full bore. And I love this because this has got to do nothing but bring these prices down further. I mean, we're already at a pretty low price for 3D printing, but if you can get this one, which has silent drivers on X, Y, and Z, has the glass bed, has the adjusters, has, you know, a nice display, power supply built into the base, not sitting out here, for $179, that's an amazing price. I mean, you can get an Ender 3 for $155. Not this one, the base Ender 3 for $155, which has come down. But that's got the crappy drivers. You don't get the silent drivers on that. You don't get a glass bed. You don't get the adjusters. For very little extra money, you're getting this. So this has got to cut into Creality's margins. So this is going to create competitive price wars. It's amazing. So what about the print quality at $179? Well, I haven't done a ton of testing. I did print all their sample prints. I did print some CHEP cubes. And the one thing I did find is little gaps at spots that it's under extruding. So I think their E-steps is not exactly calibrated properly. I'm going to have to play with that. I did use my filament, not theirs, so that may affect things a little bit. But I did use my Cure profiles that work perfectly on the V2 for me. They're not working as good here. The CHEP cubes that I printed are good, but not as good as what I get on my V2. They did give me a sample print, which got a lot of different shapes. I got some stringing, which could be my filament versus theirs. It's good. I wouldn't say it's spectacular, but it's good. Instead of a tool drawer, this doesn't have a tool drawer like the V2 does. So they give you this tool box that slides into the rail. This is a sample print. But it's actually a nice print to test. The walls are nice and straight and smooth. It's a pretty good print. But I also found out that the bed, even though I had it really leveled very nicely using my manual bed level, it lifted, it warped in one spot. So this clearly, and I found that with other prints, this clearly does not grip as well as the V2 glass bed. This one, I think I'd have actually put a little glue on it. So that's a little different. They don't give you a knob like they do with the V2, but they give you this file so you can print one. And it fits nicely on here, so it does work. They also give you this bracket to put the spool holder on the side. And so you take the spool holder, put it in here, and now it's on the side, so it puts the spool kind of like this, like I've showed on some of my Enders. And it's nice, but they didn't design this to work with the T-nuts or the screws here. The screws are too short, the T-nuts are too fat to fit into their opening, so I'll have to get some other screws to try it out. But that's actually a nice thing to add to their SD card. And it gives you nice smooth curve so you can test, look for salmon skin or things like that, and there's none. It prints pretty smooth. So overall, I think it's got potential to print just as good as the V2, but out of the box, it needs a little more work. Now, in full disclosure, Voxelab did send me one of these printers, but in reality, it's still in the box. It came a little late. I went and ordered this on Amazon because I wanted to see what you would get if you bought one on Amazon. And thank you to my Patreon supporters that allows me to do that. So I bought this and tried it out like anyone who opened one from Amazon. I will test the one directly from Voxelab and compare the two. But right now, this is the same one that you would buy on Amazon. I think it's got a lot of potential. I definitely think you're getting a good printer, even though you're paying $100 less. Now, if you want an actual Creality V2, go for it. It's a good printer, but keep an eye out. I think there's going to be a price war here soon, and that is nothing but good in the long run, I think, for the community, as long as they don't start cheapening these things even more. But we're getting silent drivers, 32-bit boards, adjusters, glass bed, good displays. I mean, the only thing left is that they come with an auto level installed. And we're almost there. They got the connector, they got the brackets. All you need to do is add the auto level, the BL Touch, and then put the firmware actually on this thing. So will that be the separation? You know, they want to justify a higher cost, so they're going to ship it with a BL Touch. I don't know. It could happen, but I like where this is going. They do have their own slicer called Voxemaker. It's got an interface similar to Simplify 3D. I like it, but it doesn't give you the option to add a Start G code or End G code. So when I asked about that, they suggested I just use Cura. That works for me. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing here, maybe check out some of the other videos popping up, and if nothing else, click on that CHEP logo and subscribe. I'll see you next time right here at Filament Friday.